Yeah, let's see if this works. Okay, well, there we go. It's live. Guess I should maybe... Can't remember if that was a good idea or a bad idea. Actually, I'll just restore it. Congratulations on being first to like the video. Also the first to leave a chat message. You should have just typed first. Anyway, I guess this is working, so we'll just kind of go for it. I mean, that's the true AHOC livestream experience right there. No plan, no schedule, ungodly out. Well, okay, no, this is relatively okay for me to start a stream. I mean, it's just, 30 minutes past midnight. That's not really that late. So yeah, let's see how this goes. Also, I have my music a bit loud for now. Well, whatever. Anyway, so yeah, I mean the title says what we're doing here, right? I've got the 5100 like 5100 mega transfers per second. What, like 100 unit, rare memory kit, and we're gonna see what it can do. Now, Crucial told me that apparently they've primarily tested this on a Crosshair 8 Impact. And, well, I obviously don't have a Crosshair 8 Impact, so we're gonna see if, like, this works at all. Okay, so the board doesn't even want to default to 5100, which is, like... Okay, that's fun. I'm gonna start with 1800 FCLK. Also, I'm using my 3700X here because if we need to do something stupid to the memory controller, I really don't care with this CPU, whereas with some of the other CPUs I would. Wait, what? Is it? I wanted max. There we go. Max that out. Okay. There we go. So this is gonna be interesting. Where did the... Okay, it's been a while since I've used this board, so I'm kind of lost on all the settings. So that should be optimal. Like, that's what I normally use for 5 gigahertz with this board, so... yeah, that should work pretty well. Also, I'm realizing I should have really popped out the BIOS so that I have more pixels to look at. There we go. Much better. All of the pixels. Yeah, I guess let's just go for it. I mean, at least I didn't have to manually set anything, so if it doesn't post, it's not like I've lost a bunch of work. Well, that doesn't look like it's working. Maybe I should update the BIOS. Not necessarily the worst idea. Also, I should maybe check if the vault mods on this board are still active, so... Okay, the board was just being stupid. Yeah, the board was just being... Did the capture card decide to stop working? Yeah, no, all the voltages are correct, so... Like, the vault ones have on-off switches, so... It's just kind of one of those things that I was wondering about, is like, are they actually off? Like, they are labeled, but I don't trust my own labels. Oh. And now we're in Windows. Okay, so... That went better than expected, assuming that we get into Windows and it tells me we're actually at 5 gigahertz. When do your new glasses arrive? What? No, I didn't have a hard time reading it. It was just annoying that it was smaller than I'm used to. Does 11th gen Intel laptop CPUs benefit from 4500 megahertz plus RAM? I have no idea. I don't test laptops. Laptops are horrible. You can't overclock them. Buildzoid, no Twitch? Nah, Twitch is working, but the thing is like the last time I did a YouTube live stream, it was way better. Like, it had way more views than any of my Twitch streams, so I've just kind of given up on Twitch. Maybe. Like, it kind of depends on if I'm doing something that I actually, like, care about or not. And I felt like, you know what? Maybe doing my first tests with this crazy memory kit on Twitch where nobody's gonna watch it is kind of dumb. So that's why we're doing it on YouTube. I need to buy a new capture card. Like, I really need a new capture card because this is so stupid. Like, and the worst part is it's like, it's completely random as to if it's gonna work or not. Also, what there we go. Yeah, like, if this was on Twitch right now, it would probably be have like 100 viewers, maybe. Okay, so 5G just works. That's great. I don't use DRAM calculator at all. I also don't show, like, the thing is like, the number of times I've seen people on, like, r/overclock, or just complaining about how their RAM doesn't overclock, and then you ask, like, how are you overclocking it? And they're like, DRAM calculator, and I'm like, yeah, that's probably the issue. So I don't use it. Because the thing is, like, there's nothing to calculate with memory timings, for the most part. Like, you can try maintain, like, JDEC, duration specs, but there's no, like, there's this equation to, like, set all your subtimings. And so if you randomly set all your subtimings and terminations and all of your everything based on some recommendations from some random piece of software, it probably, like, a lot of the time it's not going to work. And if you don't know what you're doing, then you would have been better off if you didn't do anything but change your primaries. The thing is, the tool is designed for idiots. Like, if you're not an idiot, why are you using DRAM calculator? And if you are an idiot, then DRAM calculator is probably, like, it isn't helping you become better at memory overclocking anyway. Like, It's just trying to, like, the thing is, you shouldn't be setting your secondaries, like, off the get-go. You probably shouldn't even be setting your actually, you shouldn't even be setting your resistances. So it's just like, why would you ever recommend somebody set all of their subtimings based on, like... Yeah, so I'm really not a fan of it. Actually, no, we probably need 32 ohms, 2T command rate. Where was it? Oh, right, CLK drive strength, 20. Everything to 20. Like, that's normally how I get the high frequency stuff working, so we're hopefully... That'll make this work. And maybe it needs a smidge more SOC voltage. There we go. Thanks, Stig, for the 50 Norwegian kroner? I think that's what it is? Uh, 3200 CL14 clock higher better, well, clock better than 3600 CL17. I'm honestly not sure. What goals are we going for on this stream? Ideally more than 5100 memory clock, but I'm not sure that that's possible. Like, I'd like to just do more frequency. If I could break my personal best for DDR4 clock speed, that would be great. Which, my personal best is 5100. Like, I'm not even sure. Like, the thing is, again, like, Crucial told me they tested this on a Crosshair, a Impact, and so it's like, I'm really not on the right board for this. So it's stuck on the yellow again. No, I have music. It's just playing in the background. I'm not feeding it into the stream, so... I can't stand being in a quiet room. So... Yeah, I've just decided to spare my viewers' ears. Let's just put it that way. Default TRFC being really loose is normal. Like, that's... Like, it's just following JDEC specification for TRFC if you don't set it yourself. And the spec is really loose. So, did that work? No, it didn't. I kind of feel like maybe disabling gear down mode wasn't the best idea, but we'll see. I'll drop it back down to 5 gigahertz. I'm not even sure that both memory channels on the CPU can do 5100, because if I remember correctly, the only time I've done 5100, it was on a single memory channel. Okay, well that wasn't very helpful at all. So the thing is a lot of the time what you should do is change settings and boot them at a lower frequency, and then raise the frequency to see if, like, you made things worse or better, so that's what we're doing right now. And put these back down to 20 and see if it still posts. If it doesn't, then obviously it doesn't like 20. Yeah, it just posts anyway. Which is kind of, like, that's what I was expecting, but that doesn't change the fact that I'm kind of annoyed about that. Because that's not giving me any useful information as to why it wasn't booting. 57. I'm just going to try loosen it out further. I think this might be a smidge low, but... Oh, interesting about messing with the SPDs. I wonder if you could down... Oh man, that makes me wonder if you could do like a modified dual rank SPD that's just 60, that converts the 32 gig DIMMs to 16 gigs. Dual rank? That could be cool. Actually, even better would be if you made it down all the, like if you configured them down all the way to just 4 gigs dual rank. Like, or, no, 8 gigs. Yeah, so you'd have 4 gigs of rank. That could be kind of cool. I should try that. Like, I technically have the ability to flash SPDs, so... Okay, so it's stuck on yellow again. Man, this is going to really suck if it turns out I don't have a single board capable of running these DIMMs, or a single CPU running these DIMMs. Like, actually, the other thing was they told me that they specifically tested these with the 3600X, of all things, which is, like, great. That's perfect. Because apparently the 3600Xs seem to have, like, on average, better memory controllers, which I think is really more a function of them not having so much stuff attached to the Infinity fabric. Still stuck on yellow. Only capable board is Strix. Nah, these are literally tested on a Crosshair 8 Impact. Like, that's the board these are supposed to, like, work on. So... Which I also don't have, so that doesn't help me. But... There is no beginner's RAM overclocking. Like, here's the thing. The most time-intensive part of memory overclocking is the stress test. The setting the timings is basically just a matter of keep lowering them until it stops working. There's no advance anything. It's just like, how much time are you willing to waste? That's basically the measure of memory overclocking capabilities. Also, how good is your motherboard? Like, if you're on a motherboard that's really, really well dialed for memory overclocking, then you basically don't have to do anything, because it'll set a lot of the more advanced settings for you. But again, there's no skill involved in that. That's just like, have the correct motherboard. Okay, so now we're gonna start trying to get the CPU. Let's try that. Wait, do I get extra? No, okay. Some boards give you the option to run like 4+0, but apparently not Asus. So we can take just 1.35 for that. Oh, right, this Asus BIOS, not MSI BIOS. No, the thing is, like, you'd have 2+0 as an option. Like, Asus is just straight up missing the extra core count options. On this BIOS, at least. Like, if you look at, like, an MSI or a Gigabyte board, you'll have 2+2, 2+... Like, you'll have the options listed, like, 3+3, 4+0, 2+2, 3 plus, I think there's 3 plus 0. 1 plus 1 and 1 plus 0. Oh, and 2 plus 2. Did I list 2? Yeah, I mentioned 2 plus 2 already. Builds, are you getting Zen 3 from AMD? No, I'm buying one on launch. Well, hopefully I'm buying a 5950X in a... Well, actually, no. If it sells, like, it'll sell out in the first week. So whenever 5950Xs stop being sold out, I'll get one. There. I mean, I was expecting this, but I'm still disappointed. Well, I guess now we know that it's the memory controller, not my memory overclocking skills that limited a bunch of my Rev E to 5100. Or it's the board, one of the two. I'm probably going to have to pull a stick. Rev B gives you better TRFC than Rev E. It's still not B-die levels. How far did you get with your 128 gig testing? I never actually even bothered to start a stress test because I messed around with stress testing 64 gigs and that was taking long enough. And so when I started messing around with 128, I was just like, yeah, I'm not running any kind of stress test on that. Like, it's never gonna finish, ever. Especially if it's unstable and it takes like if it goes through like 50% of the memory before detecting instability, it's just gonna like end me. So B-die is still the fastest per clock. Rev B is kind of your, like, if you want high density, Rev B is your best option. So if you want to go like 64 gigs of memory, you should probably go for Rev B because B-die, if you try to run 64 gigs on a dual channel memory controller, it's just not going to run very well at all. And Rev E is now, like, Rev E is like if you need something cheap. It's the main benefit to it. Let's try 5,000. And now it's complaining about 5,000 as well. Let's try 5,100. Yeah, board should be able to do it, but, like, can my memory controller? Right, like, that's the whole issue, is just, like, if it was just the board, I wouldn't be too concerned. I already did a bunch of videos with the 4400 Vipers. Seriously. Like, that's why I keep recommending them. God. Yeah, you need to learn how to use the search function on YouTube, apparently. Yeah, this is not gonna do 5,100. Oh, man. They need to ship this with a CPU. Raise the price to $1,200 and ship it with a CPU that can run it. Because, Yeah, I think that's the bigger issue. It's not the boards, it's the CPUs. Like, I'm pretty sure my 10900K is going to be even worse with this, because that thing can barely do 4800. Oh, maybe? No. Nah, the reason why there's like, why this dim slot is a bit discolored is because I've tested this one to be the best. See, when I was messing around with my other kit of Rev B, it really didn't care for VTT at all. But I guess I can try that. It might help the memory controller. It's turning itself on and off again on its own. I don't need to do that. How many CPUs have you fried overclocking? See, the thing is, not that many. So there's a, my first CPU that I killed was and it's not even, like, it wasn't even fully dead, but it was an Athlon 750K. And basically I think at like 1.85 memory volts, one of the memory channels died. Oh wait, this is the stupid board without the VTT voltage control. Asus. Asus and their $200 motherboards with not enough features. Actually, this one's $250. The thing is, I didn't really want to go and grab like an early... Well, it's kind of funny. So, the other board I was considering using was the B550 Master. Except, since I reshuffled the entire room, I have no idea where the B550 Master is. So, we can't use it, because I don't know where it went. And so that's a very real problem. Because that board would actually have proper VTT DDR controls. And then I have a bunch of other Gigabyte boards, but they're all like first gen AM4 Gigabyte boards, so they have a different memory topology from the later ones, and the later ones should be better. It's like, I don't really want to fight like with the early X570 boards. Which technically this is probably a pretty early X570 board as well. Okay. Okay, so VTT is acceptable at this point. It's a 0.63. Now let's bump it up. So I just flicked the switch on the board. Try it on the A520 Giga board. I probably will. Like, I want to. Just not sure I'm going to do it on stream today. Oh, whoa, that worked like a charm. VTT is magic. Yeah, the thing is, the board doesn't give you VTT controls. So, now we have 5100 working. Should I try put the other stick back in? Or, nah. We're gonna... Like, the thing is, HardwareBot doesn't care if you're running dual channel or single channel, so... Yeah, it's not doing 5200. Oh, boy. Yeah, there's no way it's doing 5200. Man, I'm so annoyed. Because, like, one of the people who was working with Crucial on developing these was kind of hyping these up with, like, oh, these do 5700 easy. And it's like, yeah, if you have the right board, I guess. Like, I don't even know what settings I'm supposed to change at this point. I mean, if you've been enough CPUs and motherboards, I'm sure 5700 is easy. No boot on cold start. You probably, if it's not booting on cold starts, you probably need to do something about the, like, resistances and stuff. Because the board is probably not setting them proper, like, not remembering them between restarts. Damn it. Okay, let's see. This isn't gonna work. Like, what am I even, like, I have no idea what I'm doing, and the board isn't being, I don't even have a postcode, it's just like, oh, it's not working. Wait, Ground, you did 2900 mem on X58? That's like, that's way better than, like, Sandy Bridge. Oh, there we go, 5200. Okay, so apparently just keep lowering the resistances. Because who cares about, you know, like, less termination is the best kind of termination. Man, I really wish we could see what's going on under, like, an oscilloscope when you change the termination settings. So I'm thinking, like, there might be a relationship where it's like you need a extra step less termination every X 100 megahertz or something. Because I actually ran into that, like, really, really early with, like, Ryzen 1st Gen. I had a motherboard where if you wanted to, like, every 2 ticks of cast latency, you needed to change the termination setting for some reason. It was really weird. And then, like, on later BIOS versions, it didn't do that anymore. But on the very, like, one of the first BIOSes that gave you access to that termination setting and the various, like, subtimings, because when Ryzen 1st Gen came out, like, you didn't have access to anything. Like, you could barely, like, I think you could change the primaries and that was it. And yeah, one of the later BIOSes, which actually gave you some settings to play with, I think in order to get 3200 CL12 working, I needed to run like 32 ohms termination. And at any other termination, it wouldn't work. And then on any other motherboard, normally you would use like 60 ohms termination all the time. All settings, always. Okay, so we're going to bump it back up to 30 and see if that works. Also, there's a bit of an issue in that the board might need to retrain every time. So I'm going to go back to 5200. Actually, we're going to go to 5100. And then I'm going to, like, hopefully that'll train. Then I'll go to 5200. Hopefully that'll also train. Then we'll go to 5300, and hopefully that'll work. Okay. So now we try 5200. I'm kind of hoping that if 5100 trained, then the board has, like, learned something and it'll make 5200 less difficult, but apparently not. I don't think it's necessarily just an SPD modification, considering that Crucial's, like, directly part of Micron. I wouldn't be surprised if they actually binned the, like, which part of the memory chips to disable. And then the SPD just has to match the disabled portion. Because if you have a, like, if the memory chip is, you know, partially disabled, and then you use a full, like, SPD expecting a full memory chip, that's going to cause some pretty major issues. Okay, nope. Now it's just chain failing. Man, this... Yeah, I think I'll need to... Like, it might just make most sense for me to just swap CPUs or something. 11. Let's try that. I don't have any affiliate links. Oh, that... I hate memory overclocking so much. Just the most of anything. And now, like, 53. Man, this is gonna be so... Well, at least I broke my personal best for DDR4 frequency already. That's not too bad, isn't it? Honestly, I've been kind of toying with the idea of buying the B550i, the Asus board. But at the same time, it's just like, I don't really want to buy more motherboards. I have so many freaking motherboards. And it's an ITX board, so the box is going to be small, but I have so many freaking boards. And I guess, like, it would just replace this board. So, do we just keep raising this voltage or something? This is why we're using my 3700X for this, because if, like, I set any of the voltages too high, I'm not concerned. This chip sucks. B550i. Yeah, no, it makes absolutely no sense from a, like, normal user perspective, but as far as I know, Asus has actually, like, it has a new memory topology compared to the past Asus boards, so it's even like, it should be even better at memory overclocking than, like, the Crosshair Impact. Like, and I say should be, I don't actually know that it is. Thanks, Super Kami Tabir? I'm not sure how to pronounce that. Anyway, thanks for the $5. B550 Unify X. Yes I am. I'm definitely getting one of those. I'm super excited for it. Yeah. Oh, and 5200 stopped working. So this is the annoying thing, is there's a lot of voltages that are like, there's a sweet spot. And if you're in the sweet spot, everything works. And if you're outside of the sweet spot, nothing works. Okay, so 1200 VDP apparently pisses off the memory controller. I think it just went into recovery. I don't think it actually trained, right? Like, no, it did actually train. Okay, well, screw you too, computer. What? Like, okay, so now I'm not sure. Like, is 1200 bad or is it fine? Who knows? Okay, we're gonna try 28.2 and then I'm gonna bump up the just gonna do yeet. There's also a chance that some of the ratios don't work reliably, which is another annoying thing. That was optimistic. Let's compromise 1175. Yeah, I'll probably end up at 1175 at some point. Yeah, the thing is, like, the reason why this DIMM slot is silver is that is the only DIMM slot where I've ever done 5100 in the past. Because I have a couple sticks that do 5100 that aren't these, and those only ever did that on the silver memory slot, which is why it's labeled as silver, and with this 3700X. So it's not like I'm going into this blind or something. It's like, no, if there's a DIMM slot on this motherboard that does 5100, it's that one. And that's because of the, like, and the thing is, it's like also, it's not just the motherboard, it's also the CPU, because it's like specifically with the CPU that I marked that memory slot. VC Jester, oh man, thanks so much for the $52. Just because you put up with our questions. Well, I mean, that's kind of the point of doing these videos, isn't it? As much as I like to complain about the stupid questions, I mean, if I actually didn't want to answer them, I wouldn't be live streaming on YouTube, would I? I'd be streaming on Twitch, where only, like, the most hardcore AHOC fans would find the stream. And I wouldn't need to deal with quite so many questions that way. Why would I stop the stream right now? I've only been going for 44 minutes. That's well before my sanity starts breaking down. You know, probably like another 3 hours before, I want to end myself and the stream. B550 Aorus Pro is actually really good at memory. Yeah, I'd believe that, because it's on, like, the new topology from Gigabyte. If I could find my B550 Master, I'd be using that instead, but I have no idea where I put it. Which is really awkward, because it's a big board. Like, it's a full ATX motherboard. I don't know how I lost it. Like, it's somewhere in the room. It's just, like, under a pile of other motherboards, and it's just like, yeah, I have no idea where. Because the problem is, it was like, because it's one of those boards that I was really planning to get to working on. So it was right at the top of the motherboard pile. So logically, when I was rearranging the room, it ended up at the bottom of the new pile. So I have no, like, I no idea where it went. And I don't really feel like cleaning up just yet. I'm still in, like, a lot of denial about how bad the mess in my kitchen is. So, as in, most of my kitchen is just boxes right now. Anyway, Donchiki, I have no idea what that currency is, but thanks for the 50 whatever. Hey, BZ, for 2x16, am I still looking for Rev E, or does that only go up to 8 gigs and I'll need Rev B instead? Also, is AES bit at the end of the code still valid? So AES, I don't think works for the new Ballistix memory sticks. I don't think that works anymore. 2x16 right now is kind of awkward, because if you're buying it from Crucial, I've seen, like, the same SKUs come in both Rev E dual rank and Rev B single rank. Rev B single rank obviously has a bit of a performance penalty for being single rank. At the same time, it does slightly better timings than Rev E. So, like, I would probably still buy a Crucial 2x16 kit, but it's kind of mixed as to what you're going to get. So, yeah. It's just kind of worth considering. Because the thing is, like, the AES code doesn't work anymore because the new kits don't have it at the end. Like, it's not part of it. Like, they're not using that in their labeling anymore. Uh, 32 gig by 2 dual rank kits work on X570. I haven't tested yet. Like, I got kind of sick and tired of using X570, so that's also part of why I messed around, like, why the 128 gig memory overclocking video was on Z490. Man, this is so annoying. Maybe just shove more voltage into it, right? Like, keep calm, raise volts. No, that voltage I'm pretty confident was fine, so... Axford. My wife heard you talking about losing motherboards in the mess, looked at me and said, that sounds familiar. Well, thanks for the $5. Will be put towards reducing the mess eventually. Honestly, I'm really kind of annoyed that I don't know where the B550 Master went. Yeah, also great name. Axford is a great name. Only issue with the B550 Master is it has Gigabyte's old, like, stupid dual BIOS functionality. Like, without the switches, so... I got Corsair dual rank 3600 kit on X570 ITX, ASRock 3950X. Works fine at XMP, but 1 megahertz over, big no, B-SOD all over the show. I have no idea why, like, how to help you with that, though. Like, I don't know what you're doing when you raise the frequency. If you're using DRAM calculator and it's unstable, then I'd say stop using DRAM calculator and just, like, set your... don't set any of the, like, subtimings or resistances, drive strengths. Don't touch any of that. And just set your primaries, probably looser, and raise your frequency. Also, if you're on, like, say, Samsung CDI, you're just screwed, which, depending on what speed bin your 3600... Like, if your 3600 kit is CL18, pretty good chance it's Samsung CDI, and you should just give up. Because you, like, Samsung CDI is, not, like... It does not live up to the legacy that BDI created. Let's just put it that way. More cast latency. If you say so. Alright, what are we at? We're at still for 5300. Did I screw anything up down here? Okay, it's back to 30 ohms. Oh? No. I get so excited when the white LED comes up, because it's like, that's the, like, one last step before green. It's like, no. It's in recovery. I bet you it's in recovery. Yeah, it's in freaking recovery. Man. I thought this was supposed to be easy. Like, thinking that RAMOC is going to be easy is just something I should stop doing. Because it never is. I don't know why I keep thinking it would be. Wait, is it easier to OC 4 ranks on 2 VS4 DIMMs on a 4-slot board? You mean dual... Wait. I'm gonna assume you mean running dual rank on dual channel. In which case, it really depends on the memory topology of the motherboard, as well as the BIOS of the motherboard, because you never know. Like, you can get daisy chain motherboards which just don't play well with 16 gig DIMMs for no other reason than the BIOS wasn't tuned for 16 gig DIMMs, or more like dual rank DIMMs in general. So, yeah, there's kind of like, it depends on the motherboard, basically. You have a basic OC guide you have, or can you recommend one? For memory? No, because there's like I keep saying this. There's no basic memory overclocking. Like you can just start like memory overclocking like skill and like difficulty basically scales with how much time are you willing to waste fiddling with memory settings. Because like it's not like I'm using some magic equation to set these settings. I'm just guessing and trying to spot if there's like some kind of pattern. Like the only reason I know that like 30 ohm termination works is because in the past I'd be using 32 ohm termination. And then it's like, well, historically, when trying to go high frequency, I'd need to lower the termination. So logically, if I'm trying to go 5200, it might need less termination than 5100. That's how I ended up at 30 ohms. Or actually, I think 5100 already needed the 30 ohms. So it's like, there's no like, there's no like math I can do for if I'm doing 5100 megahertz at CL19, therefore, magic equation, 30 ohms is the correct termination. No, it's just like, because also the termination will actually depend on the motherboard and your CPU to some extent. And it's just like, yeah, so good luck with that. I'm going to try bumping these back up. Which I know it sounds super unhelpful, but that's basically how I started memory overclocking, was just like, first I started changing the primary timings. And then I got a little bit braver and I started changing some of the secondary timings. And then we got to this point where I change all of the timings. Not that I know any better what I'm doing, just kind of like, I have, like, at this point I just have expectations based on experience. Do you have an Asus Crosshair 8 Impact? No. And I also don't have a 3600X. Like, those are both things I don't have. If I did have them, then I'd be using them because I was literally told by Crucial that that is what they tested these memory kits with. But, you know. To be fair, like, recent ASRock motherboards actually have pretty decent BIOSes. Like, the B550 Steel Legend, at least until you get to, like, once you get into the high memory frequencies, then it starts doing stupid stuff again because it's an ASRock BIOS. It can't help itself. If it wasn't at least a little bit stupid, it wouldn't be the true ASRock experience. But at least up to like 4800, it works just fine. As in, it doesn't do anything weird. I don't know. Do I just shove more VDDP into it? Oh, right. That doesn't work on this Asus board. No, wait. No, that's not what I wanted. I said more. Not less. Wait, isn't VDDP derived off of... Oh, no, that's derived off of VDIM, if I'm not mistaken, so that's fine. There's a lot of weird relationships, like VDDG and like the VDDG voltages are derived off of SoC voltage, so they can't be higher than your SoC voltage. Like if I punch in 1.3 IO die, it's not going to do anything because we have 1.2 SoC volts. Also, if I set it to 1.2, it's still not going to be 1.2 because it's like the regulator that generates it is literally incapable of being fully bypassed. So you always get like a slight voltage reduction, which I think is like 50 to 40 millivolts. Well, let's try this, I guess. Don't know why I keep scrolling around the BIOS like I'm expecting magic new settings to appear. I have G-Skill Royal 2x16 4000 CL19 Asus Maximus 11 Apex. See, what you're doing wrong there is you're using an 11 Apex. That board, like, if it's anything like my Gene, it has no idea how to work with dual rank memory sticks. Absolutely no idea. And I also don't know how to fix that. Like, that's something I ran into as well, is like with my dual rank Corsair sticks, it would just max out at like 37. Actually, no, I think I got to 3800. But it wouldn't go past that because Asus never bothered to properly implement support for dual rank DIMMs on that board, which is really stupid considering that it's a 2 DIMM motherboard. So, like, it should really just maybe it should support that kind of memory configuration properly. But the thing is, like, most of the Z390 boards are like that. They really, like, the only exception to that, as far as I can tell, was MSI, where on MSI boards you can go up to, like, 4,000, if not more. And then everywhere else, it's like, yeah, you're lucky to get 3,800 working. So I'm not sure if that made things worse or if it made things better. Hell yeah, let's go for that. I must have missed that message. Let me scroll up. Wait. I think it just recovered again, didn't it? There's no way it actually... No, it didn't train. Hey Buildzoid, my DX58SO BIOS got bricked. I put a new BIOS chip on it and everything is working except the PCIe lane, so how should I go about fixing this? I have no idea. I'm not, like, I don't repair motherboards regularly, mostly because repairing motherboards is way more difficult than trying to fix GPUs. And I'm not even that great at fixing GPUs, so going to me for repair advice is honestly a bad decision. It's like, there's a reason I don't repair stuff for people. It's mostly because I don't trust anything I touch to still work after, like, a month. Is the Z490 Apex? Yes, with Z490, Asus put a lot of work into supporting dual rank DIMMs, but with Z390, they didn't. I don't know if they might have retroactively put out some BIOS updates that fixed the situation, but I kind of doubt it. Wait, what? I thought this was limited to 999. Well, 1023 makes way more sense. I wish you could see what the board is defaulting to. So that, like, because otherwise you basically have to go through all of them. And the thing is, these are all, like, pretty interdependent settings, so that's... Yeah, we're not going to do that. Any opinion on Supermicro's Super OZ 490 motherboard? So, I've never used a Supermicro Super O motherboard. From what I've heard, like, what I've heard about them is that basically they have the issue of most new motherboard brands where it's like their BIOS just isn't that great at overclocking. Well, they have the basic stuff working, but it's like the memory overclocking generally tends to be a bit of a mess. So, as in, yeah. So, but the thing is, I've never worked with the boards myself. It's just, I'm just going off of what I've heard from other people. How is your 3700X doing in OC? Mine won't pass 4.2 gigahertz all core. Try everything. Yeah, my 3700X barely does 4.15, so I'm assuming yours is a pretty early sample. This one is from like launch week, so it's especially bad in the core department. The memory controller actually seems okay. But at the same time, well, I maybe should just switch to my 3600 at this point. I'm not sure, like, the thing is, I don't think they've done anything to the I/O dies. Like, it doesn't make sense for them to do anything to the I/O dies. I really like the B550 Aorus Pro. Well, no, it'll do for, like, here's the thing. I can technically run Cinebench at, I think, 4.2, but the amount of voltage it needs is like, yeah, we're not going to run that. Like, the early CPUs are really, really, really bad. Like, if you have a new 3700X, it should be doing somewhere between 4.2 and, like, 4.5. If you have an early, like, if you have an early 3700X and it does 4.25, it's an incredible sample for an early 3700X. Because most of them don't do that. Like, mine barely, like, I think I can just about run, like, 2 cores at 4.4 gigahertz on mine. And it needs just completely stupid voltage for that. I'm making no progress here. Kind of wondering if maybe I shouldn't bump this up. Just let it, like, retrain a whole bunch of times and hope for the best. Yeah, I mean, at this point, we can stop pretending that I care about performance. Like, all I need is for this to boot. Also, I don't actually think the VCC, like, the SoC voltage is helping. Yeah, this doesn't give me high hopes for the 10900K, though, because that thing moans about 4800 megahertz. It even complains about 4400 on dual rank. Like, a lot. Like, it won't finish Geekbench at decent 4400 memory settings. Which is kind of ridiculous. Because Geekbench isn't even that hard. I've not tried the 3600. This is literally the first time I'm running this kit. So, like, I should probably switch to the 3600. Speaking of the 3600, where is it? Oh boy. Is it still stuck in the A520 board? There's a pretty good chance it's still stuck in the A520 board. Okay, no. The 3950X is in the A520 board, so where is the 3600? I did set the overclock fail to count to 5, right? Yeah, no, it just safe booted. Early buy 3700X 4.2 at 1.35. Yeah, so, well, that's still like 50 megahertz better than mine. Assuming that, like, what are you stress testing with? The 3600 is in the MOBO I can't find. That would be ideal, wouldn't it? Well, I'm gonna go look for the 3600. We're in luck. It wasn't buried under any boxes. It was right where I was expecting it to be, so that worked. Oh man, I should have wiped that off before I pulled it out. It's gonna be a lot harder to do it in the clamshell. Anyway. I want to be a bit more careful with this CPU though, because I actually, like, this is a lot better than the 3700X is. Come on. Clear BIOS. Oh. Well, hopefully this has a better memory controller. Let's see if this will boot the DOCP profile. If it does, I'll be impressed. Okay, that's a big nope. Yeah, that's a big nope. So I guess we're just going to punch in the same settings as for the 3700X and hope for the best. Because generally that's a pretty decent way of doing things. 1.15. Man. I think the most important part is like this. And then the Proco DT. I think I might just leave everything else alone. No. No, I won't. No. Okay, hopefully that makes it work. Oh, and with this CPU, I don't actually know which memory channel is the strong one, so I guess we get to try the other DIMM slot as well. You know what would be really funny and wouldn't really surprise me at all if this chip was even worse than the 3700X in the memory controller? Because as far as I know, AMD doesn't actually bin the I/O dies very much at all. Yeah, it just recovered. Right, yeah, it did recover. Hooray, Ryzen. Yeah, this is like normal people should not be buying kits like this at all, because it's never gonna run. VC Jester, if you were trying to get 4000 megahertz with 64 gigs of RAM and good timings in X570 or Aorus Ultra, what kit would you start with? Unless you're running a Ryzen, like, for Ryzen 3000, you should not be aiming for 4000. As for which kits, I would avoid B-die, basically, because B-die is way too heavy for the memory controller at that capacity. At least from what I've heard. I don't actually have 64. Like, I don't have a way of testing quad rank B-die setups. So I guess I'd probably go for 2x32 Rev B. That seems like the easiest configuration to run. See, with the 3700X, at least I know for a fact that that chip does do 5100. But with this chip, I don't think I've ever seen it go over 5G. Which is very concerning. And it just recovered again. Update the freaking BIOS. I don't think that'll make much of a difference, but sure. What would be really funny is if the BIOS update made things worse. That is actually completely possible. Like on Z390, some of the later, like some of the early BIOSes are way better at memory overclocking than the later ones. Save a backup before you update. Why? Like, I have so many motherboards that if I screw this one up, I don't really care that much. All we really need to do is load optimize defaults, save and reset. Oh, My question was on the off chance that the 5000 series can hit the rumored 2000 FCLK. Then, yeah, I'd still probably go for Micron Rev B. Yeah, but I don't need a better PBO implementation. I need better memory controller settings. Quad B-die as in 64 gigs of B-die. Because, like, from what I've seen from other people, it's like it does barely even does 3600. 3600 on Zen Plus, you have to be really lucky. Three BIOS versions that claim to do stuff to the memory. Well, we'll see if that works. No, the Z490 Unify hard walls at 4800 on 2 sticks. Like, for raw frequency, the Unify really isn't that great, actually. I think the only time I've used BIOS flashback was to test that it actually works. Normally, I update through the BIOS. I don't do it any other way. See, the thing is, I had to send the ITX Unify back, so I don't have that one. The only Unify I have is the ATX one right now. I know for a fact that 40 ohm proc ODT doesn't work. Like, all of my 5 gigahertz stuff was either 32 or 30. Also, with Ryzen, your ODTs, like, so for first gen, depending on the motherboard, you run either 60 or 53. For second gen, you basically always run 53. And for third gen, really depends on your memory setup and your motherboard. And the frequency, well, mostly memory setup and motherboard. Like, I've seen everything from, like, 32... Well, actually, right now we're using as low as 30, but I've seen everything from, like, 30 to 48 working. And at low frequencies, you can get away with, like, 60 as well. I think it defaults to 60 as well, too. X570 Aorus Master does the 5100 Ballistix out of the box. Yeah, I don't have an X570 Aorus Master. I do have an X570 Aorus Extreme, but it's the old version. Like, I have the original PCB, not the new updated one, which should probably still do 5.1, but, like, if Gigabyte felt the need to revise the PCB, it's probably because the new like, the old one wasn't really that strong. I think I've run 24 ohm termination on something for some reason. And it worked just fine. Like, the thing is, you set the termination according to what works. Any MITx X570 boards you would recommend for CPU and MMOC for the new 5000 series? I don't know how the 5000 series is going to behave yet, so wait for launch. Like, you're not going to be able to buy most of the CPUs on launch day anyway, so I don't know why you're getting all excited. All new releases are always sold out. And the thing is, like, already 3000 series had supply issues, and 5000 series is just going to be worse as far as I'm concerned. Extreme Rev 1 only goes up to 4700. I'm pretty sure it doesn't. Because I'm pretty sure I've done more than 4700 on mine. Will you do AMD Big Navi PCB review for Gamers Nexus? Probably. Did Crucial ever get back to you and tell you how they made these sticks? Yes, I left a comment under the unboxing video mentioning that these are partially disabled Rev B memory chips. Got my 3200 CL14 to 3800 CL14 with 1.525. Is there any hidden magic that I could try to get stable at 1.5? I'm not aware of any. I don't really, and the thing is, I wouldn't be too concerned about running 1.525. Okay, so I set DOCP. Press F10. Is the new BIOS update made of magic? I think not. There's also a chance I downgraded the memory controller with the CPU swap. Which would be really funny, because the 3600, like, absolutely demolishes my 3700X on core clock. Yeah, it just recovered. So, obviously, the BIOS update didn't do anything. It did change, like, it no longer is it trying to set the XMP profile to 5000. But I get the feeling that, yeah, that didn't work. So we're back to square one. Oh, wait, I still have the Vault mod turned on. We're going to turn off the Vault mod. Which way does that switch go again? Yeah, this way. Yeah, and we're going to go back to the 3700X. Actually, no. I want to push the 3600, see if we can't make it work. And if we can't, then we're going back to the 3700X to find out that the BIOS didn't do anything at all. Looking for a good X570 mobile for my new 3900X, 128 gigs, 3600 CL16 Viper Blackout. Why would you buy 128 gigs of Viper Blackouts? I guess they were really cheap. I hope they were really cheap, because 3600 CL18 is, like, not something I would ever recommend buying. BIOS updates can regularly change the memory training procedures that the motherboard vendors implement. Like, there are, like, for Z390 and Z490, like, especially on the Intel side, different BIOSes clock memory very differently. On the AMD side, it's not quite so bad, mostly because AMD locks down a lot of the memory controller settings. So the memory, like the motherboard vendors don't get to play with them very much. But on the Intel side, like going from one BIOS to another BIOS, you can easily see like gigahertz level improvements. Like you literally go from stuck at 3600 to 4800 megahertz with a BIOS update. Now, admittedly, before the BIOS update, if you know enough about memory overclocking and the BIOS gives you access to all of the hidden settings, you could actually sort of just magic your way to that 4800 without the update. But under most circumstances, the hidden settings are called hidden settings because they're, well, hidden, and so you really need that BIOS update. So you know what? I'm going to give it 1.3 just in case I was going a little low, but I really don't think I was. And actually on AMD, I've seen some motherboards where they'd significantly change the like auto settings between BIOS updates. So even on AMD with how limited the options are, like you can still get pretty significant differences. Is this a sponsored video for Crucial? No. I mean, unless you count sending the memory kit over a sponsorship, which as far as I'm aware, it does not work like that. Like they're not paying me to make this video. It's also why I'm answering so many Samsung BDI questions and why, you know, at the end of the day, if you want raw performance in like the 16 to 32 gig capacities and you don't care about the cost effectiveness, BDI is still the best. But then again, like, I don't think anybody would be buying this memory kit for performance. Like, it doesn't even work at XMP settings on most motherboards. Or with most CPUs. Actually, does this CPU even do 5 gig? No, it has to do 5 gigahertz. I'm certain this does 5 gigahertz. I've done 5 gigahertz on this chip. I'm pretty sure I've done 5 gigahertz on this chip. Disable that. That should be good. With a good X570 MOBO, how hard is it to get 1933 FCLK with a 3800X? If your 3800X doesn't do 1933 FCLK on basically every motherboard, it doesn't do 1933. It's really that simple. I've heard from some people that apparently like they've had experiences with some motherboards not doing full FCLK on their CPUs, but every single one of my chips does 1900, and they all do 1900 on all of my motherboards, from the cheapest ones to the most expensive ones. And so it's just one of those things that like I don't really think is a thing. And none of my CPUs does 1933. So that's also kind of like, yeah. So basically, if you want a CPU that does 1933, you're gonna buy like, I don't know, 1,000 3800Xs before you find one, maybe 100. Like maybe if you're lucky, you can get away with 100, something like that. You're gonna need a stupid number of CPUs to find one that does 1933. Wait, what the hell? How did it even let me set that? Well, that's stupid, isn't it? Luckily, I'm pretty sure that rail is derived off of VDIM, so it couldn't have been above 1.5. Which 1.5 is not healthy for VDDP, but it's like 1.8, I'd be concerned that there wouldn't be a memory controller left. So yeah, that's a pretty good thing. It would have been at 1.4. Okay, so there's 100 millivolts on that. I wasn't sure off the top of my head. I get the feeling that this 3600X just has a worse memory controller than my trash 3700X. I hate that CPU so much. Like, the core is so bad. But for whatever reason, the memory controller's decent. You can't do 4000 CL12 at reasonable volts. Like, that's not a thing. So, fastest setup, if you could do 2000 FCLK, you would probably max out at like 4000 CL14. It's at 32, isn't it? Yeah, it's at 32. Let's try 30 again. Two systems, 9700K, 5 gigahertz in both, one 1.32, one 1.38, both ROG motherboards. Can I swap them and expect to use same OC settings? Assuming that they're the same motherboard, yes. But if you have like an ROG Gene or Apex, those use a completely different voltage controller with different LLC levels from, say, the Hero and the Formula and the... Actually, just the Hero and the Formula. Oh, and there's also the code, I guess. Yeah. So as long as you're not swapping like between really different boards, you'll be fine. But if the boards are really different, then you'll actually need to change the voltages because the LLCs don't match. Okay, you know what? I think this the 3700X is unfortunately just better than this chip. Oh wait, I don't have the VTT lowered. We should try that as well. Lower VTT, bump core memory voltage. And that's the thing, is there's too many settings for this. What do you think of MSI's memory? Try it. It's less bad than DRAM calculator, because like the thing is, I've not actually used memory try it myself, but I have used some of the memory profiles from MSI. And they didn't necessarily work that well, but they were very useful in terms of seeing what kind of tricks are necessary to get certain things working. Hey, does your VTT have an offset from what you set it to? So the way the way I have VTT DDR set up on this board is that there's a switch and a potentiometer to drop the VTT DDR voltage by a percentage below what it's supposed to be. So if I raise the dim voltage, the VTT DDR goes up with it. So it's not like, it's kind of inconvenient to work with, but it works enough for me to use it. Anyway, I get the feeling that this chip is just worse than the 3700X, so we're going right back to the 3700X. I'm very disappointed about this. You know, I strongly considered keeping the board without this stupid thing right here, and then I realized I don't know what to do with this thing so that I don't lose it, and so that's why it's back on there, even though it gets, like, it really gets in the way of getting to the heatsink, which is super annoying. Like, fun fact, this 3700X doesn't even work at stock settings on MSI motherboards. So, it's part of why I don't like it so much. Like, you can't, like, it literally will not run Prime 95 at stock settings, which is just ridiculous, in my opinion. Like, it's probably degraded. So it's still on those 5.1 gigahertz. No, it'll give us the little notification that I swapped the CPUs. It's a bit of a shame. I kind of wish it would just suddenly boot 5.1 like that to prove that the memory controller is the problem and not my settings, but... No, there's thermal paste still on the heatsink. Anyway, I'm gonna go kill hyperthreading, because hyperthreading is generally bad for stability. See? So yeah, that 3600 is actually worse than my 3700X. Because AMD doesn't bin... oh, wait, no, it just went to 26. What? Oh, it fully reset. That is so stupid. Why would you do that? Did I tell you to do that, motherboard? No, I didn't. Why did you reset? I totally didn't notice that it reset all the settings. Oh, well, whatever. I know, we're gonna go to 1.6. Oh, wait, they changed how it works. That's at 40. I'm not sure. I don't really think this is all that necessary, but in case it is. Like, that really shouldn't be necessary, but it might be. I wonder if the end shortcut... Oh, that does work. Cool. So I can use the end shortcut. Yeah, no, we're gonna go with 30. Oh, wait, nope. Go. Now it is set up for optimal performance. Oh, boy. No, it looks like it's still not working. You know what would be especially funny if the BIOS was actually the problem, like, made it worse. Yeah, this isn't really confidence-inspiring what it's doing right now. If you're running 2T command rate, GDM off is actually... Like, the thing is, you can either... So you have 2T, then you have GDM, and then you have 1T. And so 2T is kind of the loosest. Oh, there we go, 5100, so I'm not terrible. I do know what I'm doing. Yeah! Let's go back to 5200! Oh, man. So yeah, it's literally just the CPU. Man, that is so annoying. Wait, what? Since when? Does that work? I thought we were limited to 27. But that's still limited to 58. Okay. I'm assuming the TRCD will actually stick. Like, the funny thing is you can sometimes have the BIOS let you punch in settings that the memory controller literally does not support. So, which 27 is a really weird number to have as like a timing limit. I guess if you did like 11 plus... wait, no. Yeah, 27's super weird. Like, what would that even... Like, if you went from 16, that would be like, yeah, you'd have to be like 11 plus... No, that's dumb. Because you can set TRCD 9. Yeah, no, like, the TRCD limit for DDR4 itself might be 63, but the BIOS on X570 motherboards for a very long time didn't support anything more than 27. And I always thought it was just a limitation of AMD's memory controller where it's like, we do not do more than 27 TRCD. Which is a really weird value, but... Like, if you just punched in 999, it would just go to 27. Okay, so it just reset again. I have an AMD system, and I have 73 nanoseconds at 16, 18, 18. Is your Infinity Fabric out of sync, perhaps? Also, Tech Fan, thanks for the $5. Familiar with the Encore option on Aorus X570. There's an additional option for setting the SoC Encore in millivolts, but not sure what the safe range is. I have no idea which voltage you're referring to right now. So, yeah, I can't help you, unfortunately. It's been way too long since I worked with one of those boards. And also, it depends if you have, like, the X470 Gaming 7 will have completely different voltage options from, like, the rest of Gigabyte's X470 lineup. Because that one actually has a good VRM, whereas the rest of them really don't. It's at 30. I mean, Let's go back to 27. Oh, so it is bugged out. You can't actually set 32. Freaking Asus. That's like ASRock right there. That's the kind of like thing I expect from an ASRock BIOS, where you can punch in settings that don't actually work because nobody bothered to do any kind of input sanitization. It's like, yeah, you can punch in whatever value you want, even if it causes the system to not post anymore. Okay, so now 50 to 200 is easy. So we're making progress. But will 5300 be easy? No. Of course not. Why would it ever be easy? Jim Hurley, thanks for the $20. Do you have any experience with Samsung C-die overclocking? No, because I've heard from other people that it's garbage, and I want to keep garbage out of my life. I have enough garbage as is. I don't need more garbage memory sticks. I have garbage GPUs, motherboards, CPUs. I don't need to add a bunch of Samsung C-die to that. Man, I don't know what to do anymore at this point. Like, I'm all out of ideas and I've tried nothing. Anyone experience system shutdown during benching when power delivery is not the issue? Depends on what kind of shutdown. This is X570. If you try to raise the BCLK, it stops detecting SATA ports, PCIe slots. Really everything just kind of stops it being detected. Yeah, no, it just failed. See, my experience with X570 has been as soon as you go over, like, actually, I didn't even have 101 working. Like, it would just insta-fail. But, sure, let's try that. Lower DRAM voltage a little. No. I know for a fact that this scales to at least 1.7 volts. We are going to run 1.7 volts. Like, what would be super annoying is if I get 101 BCLK working and then can't get into Windows because it refuses to detect the SATA SSD I'm using. Yeah, well, Linus is a meme channel, so I don't know why you'd expect anything else from him. You know what, let's underclock the Infinity Fabric. You know, take some load off of the memory controller. Really let the memory controller relax. I don't actually think that's going to achieve anything, but we can try. I mean, I'm not paying for this memory kit either, so... Like, this is a live advertisement for all intents and purposes. It's just really bad at advertising the product. And I'm not getting paid, so... Obviously, I'm doing something wrong. Try other memory stick. They're supposed to be super consistent from what I've heard. Like, I could still try the other stick. Maybe the other stick is just, like, slightly less heavy on the memory controller or something, but... I don't have high expectations. Yeah, but I'm not getting paid by Crucial, who I'm advertising, right? So, that's what I meant. I'm not ignoring all of your support. Like, don't get me wrong. Anyway, yeah, let's try the other stick, I guess. I don't really think that'll change anything. I really think it's just like the memory controller just going like, do you want 5250? Are you... Nope. I'm made of the finest Global Foundries 12 nanometer silicon. And I say no to 5.2 gigahertz. Doing so much memory overclocking, I don't know how to put a memory stick back in. Yeah, that's who I'm referring to when I said they scale to 1.7 on air. Okay, well, 101 BCLK is working right now, but 5250 isn't. Um, 32 nanometer silicon on insulator was freaking amazing, and I will fight anybody who disagrees with that. Like, sure, FX CPUs were garbage, but 32 nanometer silicon on insulator was, like, it clocked stupid high, it took voltage like a champ, like, you would literally blow up your motherboard before the CPU did. Like, you could bench those chips at, like, 1.6 volts on ambient. And I even ran 1.7 into some of them, and they just didn't care. So, yeah, 32 nanometer was beast. And it scaled to 8 gigahertz on LN2. Yeah, I get the feeling I should really go find a different motherboard. And where is the B550 Master? I'm trying to think of, like, where I could have put it. What will be the best RAM to buy for Zen 3? Really depends on what capacity you're looking for and how much money you're willing to spend. But if you're going for raw performance in the 16 to 32 gig range, Samsung B-Die. If you want like 64 gigs or more, you probably want to get like Micron Rev B. The thing is, 32 nanometer on Sandy would actually die much faster than FX would. Like, FX chips, I don't actually... Like, I don't know where they die. Like, I don't know that they even degrade. Like, I literally... The 750K that I blew up the memory controller on, that chip, I was regularly running it on a 120 millimeter water cooler at 1.75 volts. And it's like... It didn't care at all. And yeah, like that was just like, oh my god. Whereas if you shove 1.75 into a Sandy bridge, you're not going to have much Sandy bridge left. Like, I benched all the way up to 1.7. But my 3960X also isn't like 100% anymore, so... We need a 32 nanometer silicon on insulator I/O die. It would pull 40 watts. But at least it would run 5 gigahertz. I already did 16 gig memory kit buying guide. Like, I don't, like, the memory doesn't change. Like, the memory controller barely even matters. It's not like there's some drastic difference between what kind of settings you can run at 3000 versus, like, well, it's not like there's a drastic difference between which memory chip is king in terms of performance based on which CPU you're using it with. Jesper Lammert, thanks for the Danish 50 kroner, I guess. My 9900K will run HyperX 4600 XMP kit, but G.Skill 4133 XMP kit is not working. iOS a 1.35 volt, currently running 3800, which is a bit terrible. Any ideas? What motherboard are you on? That's my main. And also, is that G.Skill kit 2x16 or 2x8? Like, what is it? If you're on a Z398, if you're on an Asus Z390 motherboard, I'm going to bet that's a 2x16 G.Skill kit. And the reason why it doesn't go over 3800 is because you have a 2x8 memory kit. I mean, 2x16 memory kit. Hoping Ballistix 4000 MHz will nail the speed on Aorus Master X570, getting 5900X when it's released. Yeah, that should be no problem. Well, like, the kit should have no problem running that, but I don't know that the FCLK will do that. Thoughts on Kingpin pulling close to 100 amps on 3090s? That's within expectations for 3090s. Yeah, but like, what about 4x8 versus 2x16? So if you're on, actually, on Asus Z390 motherboards, you're better off with 4x8 than with 2x16. And same for Gigabyte Z390 motherboards. But for Z490, I actually am not entirely sure which is best. Do you drink coffee? No. Are you in need of an FX8350? I don't need one, but I won't say no to a free FX8350. They're really fun CPUs to mess with. Okay, there we go. Also, you should send me, for the FX8350, send me an email about it to buildzoid@gmail.com. Which one's more stable for... I have no idea, actually. The thing is, I've been avoiding testing a bunch of B550 motherboards. I'm just super done with I'm pretty done with AM4. And so it's just like, I don't really want to test a bunch of B550s. BZ1 to Radeon 6970. Is it a special 6970 or is it just like a reference card? So that kind of depends. Would you say no to a potentially broken FX8350? Actually, kind of, yeah. Do you want a free HD 7870 XT variant? That is like the only Tahiti core that I think is missing from my Tahiti collection, is the 1536 core. So I guess yes. Same email. So buildzoid@gmail. I just said it's buildzoid@gmail.com. There. Oh man, my email is going to just be completely demolished after this stream, isn't it? I'm going to regret that. Oh, whatever. I'm like bad enough on keeping up with it as it is, and it's relatively hard for people to find my email. But now I've done it, haven't I? Okay, trying to think of what motherboard I could grab. I could try the X570 Tomahawk. Actually, let's see. I'm gonna check the MSI website and see what MSI thinks of the X570 Tomahawk. Because, like, the thing is, the memory overclocking should just get better as as you get with, getting newer and newer motherboards. Man, I can't wait for when I get the Unify X. It's gonna, that's gonna solve... Oh, wait, they only think it does... Oh, okay, so they're, 4600 plus. Uh-oh. Wait, please tell me that the memory support list is better than that. Memory, alright. Yeah, okay, I did click on the right ones. Speed. Oh, they only support 4400. Well, damn it. Okay, so that's not an option as far as I can tell. Yeah, that's kind of miserable. How does it only do 40? Oh, I guess they're actually going for, full mem test stability. I haven't, I'm not going to go digging around for the master for several minutes on stream. That's dumb. Especially since I'm not carrying the camera with me. That would make it take even longer to find the board. Well, this is really disappointing. I mean, I wasn't really expecting to get anywhere. It was kind of, I was really hoping this wouldn't go that badly, considering, it's an ITX board. It looks really, physically, this thing looks super similar to the Crosshair. And I don't mean that just oh, it's got 2 DIMM slots. No, if you look at most of the power delivery, most of the circuitry in the memory area, it looks almost exactly the same as a Crosshair. So, I don't know. MSI BIOS has two settings, the OC and one right above OC. I need to accept an agreement on what is the difference. I have no idea what you're referring to. Is this the Strix I? Can you read? What do I have this for? Just grab the master. No one is leaving. No, well, no one is leaving. No, the issue is I have no idea if I'll find the master in a reasonable amount of time. More like I don't really feel like looking for it either. That's the other issue. Because, like, I can barely move in the kitchen. That's, like, the other part of it is, like, yeah, not only is it buried under boxes, it's probably in the way of finding it as well, so. Yeah, oh, board. I mean, I wanted to try this memory kit on Z490, but I was kind of hoping to keep that for, like, a separate stream or a separate video. Also, I'd need to, like, shuffle. Yeah, I don't feel like dealing with the mounting hardware for Intel CPUs. So we're not doing that. Let's try the A520 motherboard. Because the thing is, that board actually has this kit on the QVL as capable of running 5100, I think. Let me just double check. Because that is like a 4-layer PCB, so I don't really have high hopes for that, but... Memory support. No, that's for Renoir. Yeah, they do actually have this listed. As running 5100. Though I think they have a different SKU because they have it listed as 192643, whereas this is 192648, but I guess maybe the QVL is a bit outdated. Yeah, it's a bit of a mess, but... Oh, let's try it. It's not like it's gonna get worse. I mean, it doesn't really matter if it gets worse. It's not like I'm making progress right now. At least we'll... Even if we go backward, at least there's some movement. Which is far more interesting, right? Also, that board has working BCLK. Like, really good working BCLK. Which makes me so annoyed how all of the X570 motherboards, because they have AMD's stupid X570 chipset, have worse BCLK overclocking support than any motherboard with an AS Media chipset. That's the other reason why I really want to dig up the B550 master, because I have some ideas for messing around with BCLK overclocking that I don't really want to do on ASRock BIOS, because Gigabyte's BIOS handles BCLK a bit differently from everybody else's BIOS. Or at least in my past experience it does. So, yeah. that. Also, this is a Gigabyte B450 motherboard PCB that I'm using as a test bench. Oh, I'm going to have to go find a clamshell for the CPU because this is the 3950X in the board. It's kind of funny, the board's $50, the CPU in it, 700, I think? 750, something like that. So, CPU is what? Many times more expensive than the board. I can't do math at this point. That functionality was lost, like, probably an hour ago. There. This right here, this is what peak performance looks like. This memory section right here. Fun fact, this board actually goes to high memory voltages. Cause yeah, and I did test some other memory sticks on it, and it does 40. Like I have managed to go all the way up to like 4800. Not above that though, which is a bit disappointing. Oh, I'm not doing that one. Oh, wait, this has all of the standoffs like that. Oh, okay, wait. Actually, we could try it with the 3950X. But I get the feeling the 3950X's memory controller is still not as won't necessarily be as good as the 3700X is. I should have a tall stand. Well, whatever. We'll just pull a new one. Yeah, the CPU is lapped. And basically, the reason why it's so uneven is because I literally just went until it's flat. Like, a lot of people will lap all the way down to everything being copper, but I just wanted the chip to be flat. And this is flat. Like, the sandpaper marks go evenly all across the surface, so it's flat. It's just that, you know, didn't take off all the material. Well, didn't take off all of the nickel coating, but that really, like, the nickel coating isn't the issue. The issue with the performance of the stock IHS is that it's really not flat, right? Like, you can see all of the high spots where the copper is showing through. Also, by doing it this way, if I run liquid metal, it's going to dissolve into the it's going to diffuse into the IHS less because there's more nickel there. And also, if I ever need to, well, actually, I don't know why I'd be well, yeah, it reduces how much liquid metal would diffuse into the IHS. Not that I plan to run this chip with liquid metal ever again, but yeah. I don't know, maybe if someday I build my daily system to not be a pile of spare parts, then I might liquid metal the 3950X into it. Oh no, that's not going to work. Well, since this board is official, like, almost officially supports this kit. Oh, I had it the right way around. We are going to try both DIMMs on this one. And see if it does 5100. Because according to Gigabyte, it should. Oh, also I missed a bunch of super chats. So TechFan, thanks for the $5. What would you consider a win for Zen 3 on second revision of X570 boards? RAM OC hopes, memory clocks. I've not really thought about that. I'd be like, the thing is just like, you just expect the boards to get better at kind of everything at the same time. And the thing is, the core clock really is more about the CPUs than the motherboards. So I'd mostly be expecting memory improvements. Actually, we don't even need to bother with the SSD, so we'll just leave that out. And then Jesper Lammert with the 100. I'm pretty sure that's Danish kroner. Let's try again. Both kits 2x8, Maximus 11 Apex, CPU Mobo combo ran 30, 12, 12, 12, but different kit. LN2. Man, you don't need to keep sending super chats. You just need to like put out a string of like maybe one super chat and then just dump a string of comments with details. I said okay. Oh, I forgot to plug in the keyboard and mouse. Good job, me. One thing I don't get, if the memory controller on the CPU only goes so high, how does the board get the memory higher than the CPU can handle? The memory, so here's the thing. So you have the memory controller on the CPU, right? And it is sending signals to and receiving signals from the memory. And the memory is receiving signals from the memory controller and sending them, and then sending signals back to the memory controller. All of this goes through the motherboard. If your motherboard is garbage, then it will distort the signal. So it'll be really, really hard to figure out for the memory controller. It's like the memory will send a 1, and by the time it gets to the memory controller, it's going to look like a 0.5. And then the memory controller sits there and goes like, well, I have no idea what the hell a 0.5 is. I understand zeros and ones. So it's going to, at that point, decide that it's either a 0 or a 1, and it's probably, like, it's going to be wrong sometimes. And so you're going to get an error. Now, if you have a motherboard that has a better, PCB, and potentially also, like, the thing is, there's a bunch of things like the different termination settings and the drive strengths. Those all affect how the signal affect the quality of the signal as well. So basically, the motherboard can, with a combination of better PCB quality and better trace layout, which just basically gives you an upper limit to how good the signal quality can be. And a combination of BIOS settings can improve the signal quality so that at 5 gigahertz, a 1 still looks like a 1 instead of almost like a 0, right? Whereas if your motherboard is garbage, you try to send that one at 5 gigahertz down from the memory to the CPU, and by the time it gets to the CPU, it's like, well, I have no idea what this is. It's a 0, isn't it? So that's how the motherboard affects the memory overclocking. Also, I still haven't plugged in the keyboard. I don't know why I bother plugging in the mouse. It's not like I ever use it. Okay, here goes. Cheapest AM4 motherboard I own versus most expensive memory kit I own. Now, if you overclock your RAM enough, it becomes a random number generator. That's what it becomes. Yeah, I wasn't really expecting it to work. Do I need to do anything with voltage, or should I just work? Generally, for even 1900 FCLK, you probably need to set your VDDGs correctly and SoC voltage correctly. So I normally go 1.2 SoC, 1.15 IO die, and actually just 1 volt for the CCDs. That tends to work best for me. But there are other options. Yeah. But like you can probably, like with some CPUs, you actually should be able to use lower voltages than what I normally use. Like you might be able to do like 1.15 SoC, 1.1 IO die, and then still 1 volt on the CCDs, or maybe even 0.95 volts on the CCDs. Really, the CCD voltage doesn't seem to do anything for stability, and you can set it as low as possible. Also, I should have updated the system specs. Wait. Okay, no, I have it right. There we go. Also, the lowest letter count motherboard I've used in a while. Okay, so let's try 1.6. Yeah, this board goes to 2 volts. Also, on that note, apparently, on that note, the X570 ITX Strix only goes up to 1.8 volts because Asus couldn't be bothered with spending a couple extra dollars on 2.5 volt capacitors for the memory rail and use 2 volt capacitors. So you can't shove 2 volts into them because that's the maximum voltage rating on them, which is just like, why Asus? Why? Why do you do stupid stuff like that? Also, the VTT DDR on this board actually works. You know, like I can set arbitrary VTT DDR for arbitrary memory voltage, which is like basic freaking functionality that every motherboard should have, especially considering Gigabyte somehow manages to have it on a board that's like $40. But Asus can't figure out how to do that on a $250 board. And now I've realized that I don't think we have IO die voltage settings. Oh boy, this is going to be fun. Okay, now if that's not where I want to be. Oh, that's part of why Oh, man. Why is it set to 40? Oh, well, that's probably why it isn't working. that doesn't help. No. 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 Oh, yeah, so here's like you're not so, I don't think you're normally supposed to have access to these, but this is a low-end Gigabyte motherboard, so they kind of forgot a bunch of extra settings lying around. That's always fun when you get random extra settings on low-end boards because somebody couldn't be, like, they didn't set up the BIOS fully. Yeah, so this is going to be an issue. This board, for whatever reason, doesn't have proper VDDG controls. And I'm pretty sure this is a relatively recent BIOS. Or they just didn't put out BIOS updates for this board. One of the two. Yeah, that's going to be kind of annoying. Okay, well, we'll see where we can go. But I don't think without the I/O die voltages, this is going to be super difficult. Like, without being able to set the CCD voltage low. No, oh, and the end shortcut doesn't work here. Oh, but we can do that. Bam. Okay, that's actually just faster for me. Oh, and it only goes to 30 ohms. Interesting. And you know what? We're going to try 5 gigahertz first. Just to, like, this board's 40 bucks. You can't expect 5.1 immediately. Honestly, if it does 5G, I'll be impressed. I think Gigabyte was being very optimistic with their 5100. Well, damn. Now, admittedly, this is Rev B, and on Rev B, 5G should be easy. So... you know, don't get your hopes up. 5100 still doesn't work. I wonder what CPU... like, this is always the thing I wonder about when reading motherboard QVLs is like, so what percentage memory controller did you use for this QVL? Okay, so now it's back down to 2672. Go back to 50. And try 0.65 VTT DDR. I'm not even sure that VTT... I've never actually checked that that's implemented. I'm going to assume it's actually implemented. Like, this is a Giga... like, the thing is, I think part of the reason why Gigabyte has, like, full range memory voltage basically everywhere and VTT DDR everywhere is because they copy-paste the entire memory power delivery from, like, their cheapest of cheap motherboards all the way up to, like, the most high-end boards, and then they just shuffle around how many MOSFETs there are. And a lot of the time, they don't even do that. And so it's just one of those things, like, the benefits of that are kind of like, well, at least all of the motherboards have the same settings and they work the same way. Arguably, you would maybe want better power delivery on the top-end boards. It used to be that the top-end Gigabyte boards would actually get different, like, the VDDR rail would be mega overkill. And then they stopped bothering it with that at one point because it didn't actually do anything for memory overclocking. Yeah, so Gigabyte won't let you set more than 27, but Asus will because Asus doesn't mind that the BIOS is broken. Yeah, because there's limits on this from the memory controller. That's why I was so surprised when the Asus BIOS was like, yeah, 32 TRCD, sure. Then it didn't post, and it's like, yeah. Yeah, because the CPU totally supports that, definitely. What else do I want to do? Actually, nothing. I don't really want to do anything at that point. So we're going to save and reset with that. I'm going to bump the BCLK on this. Like, assuming it still posts, which it should. It's back to 5 gigahertz, and I'm just going to set, like, 102 BCLK. Or 101. Latest BIOS. Oh, I should maybe try updating then. Oh man, yeah, I'm really behind on the BIOS updates for this one. Improve memory compatibility with F3. You know what? I actually think F3 will probably have the best chance of running these DIMMs. Like, not the F10 or F11 BIOSes, because the F10 and F11 BIOSes are on new AGSAs. And every time AMD changes the AGSA, everything breaks. Or, like, that's the BIOS updates that are, like, the most scary in terms of, so what did AMD break this time? From the company that can't give you a stable GPU driver, we bring you the BIOS updates that are never stable either. Actually, the BIOS updates aren't as bad, but there are certainly, like, certain AGSAs which are just freaking terrible. So I'm going to try F3. Hopefully F3 just brings back the CCD and IO die voltages. I think that's most of the issue with this board. Or at least I'm hoping that's most of the issue. Yeah, what MOBO works with this? In my collection, no MOBO. Or at least I've not tried any, like, good MOBOs. Let's put it that way. Well, the X570 Ice Strix is a good MOBO. It's just not new enough. Like, that's I think the issue is, like, yeah, if I could find the B550 Master, that would probably run this. Oh, there we go, 5 gigahertz. Actually, you know what? Before I update, I want to try 101. I wonder if it skips memory training or something. That would be cool. It didn't. It power cycled. I have videos covering AMD memory overclocking to depths and lengths that would drive you insane. So if you like, I'm not going to answer questions about that. You can go watch those instead. I mean, it's not working. We're not doing 5100. We're doing 5000. Which, you know, admittedly is a 2% down clock, so not really. Ah, yes. The Gigabyte motherboard experience. So, that's 5072. Which, that's because the BCLK reading is, I believe that's actually just some kind of measurement issue. But I also don't have a way of proving that, unfortunately. I wish I had a, like, oscilloscope that could measure a... Well, actually, my Rigol technically has 100 megahertz bandwidth, so we could totally measure 101 megahertz BCLK. Like, it would just be attenuated, but that's not really a big deal because all we care about is the frequency, not the amplitude. So it should still be able to measure that. That would be cool. Like, actually measuring the BCLK on a motherboard with a scope. I should mess with that. I should totally mess with that. Hopefully the BCLK circuit isn't so sensitive that when I stab it with a probe, it just completely falls apart. That would be very unpleasant. Well, it would just crash. Or at least I hope it would just crash. I would assume it just crashes. No, we're showing 5072, which is not 5100. It's 30 megahertz too low. Also, we're shoving way more voltage into the kit than it's like spec'd for, and like I'm giving this a lot of helping hands, but okay, no. So 5100 straight up not possible, but 5050, 5050, and this is on the old BIOS, so we need to now like load optimize defaults. Yes. Save and exit, and then I'm gonna update the BIOS to the F3. And F3 will hopefully run XMP on this, which would be insane. Oh, what? F2. What? There we go. F3. Yeah, so I did update the BIOS on this board. Just a long time ago. Man, my perception of time is terrible. Like, it's really, really bad. Like, it was only very recently that it occurred to me that if I record a 40-minute video, I spent 40 minutes recording a video. You know, like, just like, that was a thing that was like, wait a minute. I can't be possibly spending less than 40 minutes shooting a video if the video is 40 minutes long. That was a big realization for me. Gives you some idea, and that's basically why the videos are so damn long. It's because it really just doesn't register that time is passing. Which is why I feel like I've only been streaming for an hour when it's been 2 hours and 40 minutes at this point. Nah, so funny thing about my video making process is I complain about doing a lot of takes, but the takes aren't as long as the final videos generally. Like, there are exceptions to that, but the vast majority of videos, what happens is the takes actually evolve into their final 40-minute monstrosity. They don't start as a 40-minute abomination and waste of time. They grow as I think of more and more irrelevant tangents to go on as I work on the video. Yeah, if I did a 24-hour live stream, it would last 3 days. Exactly. Okay, this time we will finally have a motherboard that runs the XMP. The other thing with my video production process is, like, my understanding is that if you write a script, right, you also need to proofread it, and you're probably going to be reading it out loud at that point. And it's like, well, what if we just skip the whole, like, so if you're proofreading the script, couldn't you already be recording the video as you're proofreading the script, right? Okay. And now remove the having a script part, and you basically have how my videos work. Because it's not like I'm shooting, 20 takes of the same video. Also, I don't generally do anywhere near 20 takes. I complain as soon as I do more than like 5. Or even more than 4, honestly. I just complain all the damn time about everything. I'm a very negative person. Be very happy that you only get to experience me through YouTube voluntarily. Because if you had to if you had to listen to me all day, every day, you'd probably have depression. But anyway, yeah, where was I going with that? So yeah, I don't shoot the same video over and over again. Like I actually change what's in each take is slightly different or sometimes very different because there was a recent video that I was doing where the original idea was supposed to be like 50 minutes long and then the video finally ended up being like 45 minutes long because I just kept adding extra information into it as I was going like, "Oh, this is kind of interesting. We should maybe include that." 40, and after I think 7 takes or something, I had a 40-minute video. And that's when I was like, yeah, this is good. Honestly, this is actually kind of unnecessarily long, but I don't really feel like figuring out which parts to not bother including, so we're just going to go with the 45-minute version. Okay, so XMP still doesn't work. Do Hynix CJR not like the voltage so much? Couldn't recall. Yeah, CJR generally stops scaling at like 1.4 volts, if not 1.35. Bullet points still require that you come up with them ahead of time. Cheapest AM4 Mobo, the one I'm running right now. Like, honestly, it's decent. Especially if you're using a downdraft air cooler. Like, the biggest problem with it is the lack of a VRM heatsink. Okay, so it still doesn't just magically do 5 gig. So that's a pretty... Yeah, so we still need a bunch of settings configured. I'm really annoyed that we don't have I/O die voltage settings right here. Yeah, and this is still wrong. Like, there's no... Where does AMD hide those settings? Are they using... Is this BIOS using some ancient version of the AGSA? No. And that's SATA stuff. No, that doesn't matter. Okay, well, that's useless to me as well. I guess we'll just try 1150 and hope for the best. Not that I have high hopes, because normally if you set your CCD voltage too high, it just stops working properly. Oh, wait. Oh, no, that's for the... No, that's not... This doesn't... This setting right here, it doesn't improve your memory overclocking. It just matches your FCLK to your XMP. So yeah, we're not doing that. Actually, we can just set it to 100. That'll do it. Oh wait, that's already disabled. Oh wait, no, so I was wrong. And they don't give you +0 options. Oh well. Alright, I need to set the resistances and stuff. Nope. How many BIOS are you behind, BZ? I'm on F3 right now, and there's F10 and F11 ahead of this. Honestly, I'm kind of wasting time with this board. I feel like I should just go dig up the master. Just end the stream, dig up the master, do another stream like tomorrow or something. There's nothing really stopping me from doing streams just randomly whenever. Like, my main concern with randomly streaming to YouTube is that YouTube's algorithm will get annoyed. But I'm not sure if it does that for live streams. I know if you upload too many videos too quickly, it gets annoyed with that. I'm not sure if it counts live streams into that. So I managed to actually go backwards because on F2 I was actually doing 5 gigahertz. And in fact I was doing 50-50. But now we're not even doing that. Good job, me. Now the issue isn't so much looking for the board, it's more like digging, like it's shuffling boxes around to reveal more boxes. Especially since I don't have a ton of space to shuffle said boxes in. Now, the reason I'm not streaming on Twitch right now is because I get more views on YouTube. And I am that shallow. Yeah, because the master was at the top of the pile of motherboard boxes before I had to rearrange the room. So now it's probably somewhere at the bottom. But there's many, many piles of boxes. So at the bottom of which pile is it? That is the question that I'm really not very interested in answering. You're not getting to see the room. Like, I don't know why everybody wants to see my kitchen so much. And I managed to get the board really stuck. I love how motherboards just sometimes go full try-hard, where it's like you punch in settings that don't work, and they just get stuck. And stay stuck. Forever. Like, until the power goes out, it's not going to do anything. On X470, 3800 should be easy with Ryzen 3000. Even on a daisy chain. I'm not Canadian, though. I'm Czech, living in the UK. And right now, like, let me put it this way. There is a test bench sitting on top of the stove. So, it basically just looks like boxes everywhere. We're here for the character, not the OC. Well, like that, you've made me incredibly disappointed. Like, the whole reason why I don't show my face on streams and in videos is because it's like, I'm not supposed to be the attraction. Like, I still have a functional microwave and toaster, so, you know, that's the only things I really need. The board is very, very not working right now. Oh yay, it's doing something. It probably recovered at last. Or it figured out how to train, which would be very impressive, but I doubt it. Okay, no, it didn't do 5 gigahertz. I'm pretty sure that the XFR settings are wrong. Like, this right here is probably too high. Because you don't have the voltages separate anymore. Well, this looks a lot more promising in that it's actually power cycling instead of just getting stuck. Could a motherboard break after many failed boots? No. Like, the failed boots don't, like, do anything permanent. Nah, this board is single BIOS. Unless you were talking about the B550 Master, which does have dual BIOS, but doesn't have the switches for it, which is going to be so much fun to work with. Man, I can't wait for the motherboard to randomly shuffle between the BIOS chips for no freaking reason. So we'll have to have this flash stick plugged in just so I can keep my so that I can keep the settings saved. Ah, the true low-end Gigabyte experience of like a couple years ago, except now coming to you on a $200 B550. Actually, isn't it like $250 or something? I think it's like $250 or maybe $300. Yeah, except coming to you on a $250 B550 motherboard. Yay! I still don't know why they didn't include the BIOS switches. Like, or why they didn't make it single BIOS. Like, one of the two. Don't do dual BIOS without the switches, because without the switches, it is so incredibly annoying. How does a BIOS break or get corrupted? Well, if you have a Z87 or Z97 gigabyte motherboard, it just kind of does that, as far as I'm aware. Like, those boards apparently, just, like, those corrupt their BIOS just all the time at random. They're kind of famous for it. Luckily, they have dual BIOS, so basically the BIOS gets corrupted and then the board like recovers from that, but still, it's a pretty regular occurrence with those apparently. And the board is stuck again. Disregarding best, what is your favorite motherboard? Man, that is a hard question. Really hard question. Because I'm trying to think of, like, is there any one motherboard, like, there's plenty of motherboards where it's like, I like them. But favorite? Because the thing is, like, the motherboard comes with a CPU, and it's just like, well, there are some X99 motherboards that I kind of like, but X99 is awful because of the CPUs, just awful. And I really like my Rampage 4 Extreme, but it's like the VRM on that is a little bit on the weak side. Could be stronger. X299 Dark, like the BIOS is a little bit, like the BIOS is really quick to use, but it's a little bit too stripped down. I don't really have a favorite. Like, there's every motherboard I can think of, I can think at least one thing that I would like changed. So, yeah, I don't have a favorite. It's very interesting. I somehow thought you could be Czech, but I knew you're in the UK, so I somehow dismissed it. I was literally born in the Czech Republic. Like, I lived in the Czech Republic until I went to the UK to study computer science in uni. Also, thanks for the 200 crowns. 990FX Gaming. Oh yeah, that is a good board. That is a really good board. The VRM has OCP though, and the VRM could be stronger. Like that's the like that board is just like yeah, but if the VRM was better. So it's basically in the same category as the Rampage 4 Extreme, where it's like, yeah, it's a great board, but if the VRM was better. Okay, well, I'm super done with this at this point. Not that I've made much progress. I mean, I did break my personal best for memory clock at 5200, which, considering this memory kit, is kind of depressing. The thing is, like, I really don't have the correct motherboard or CPU for this, because Crucial... Well, CPU maybe, motherboard absolutely not, because from what I've been told, these were optimized specifically for the Crosshair 8 Impact. I don't have a Crosshair 8 Impact, so here we are. Also, I don't really have, I mean, I have, well... I'm kind of thinking if I had the B550 ITX, that would have probably done a decent job. But the main issue is, like, I don't really feel like giving Asus $200 for a B550 motherboard that I know from other people doesn't go above 1.8 volts again, because Asus can't be bothered to use properly rated capacitors on their bloody memory rail, and it also doesn't have properly, I don't believe it has properly implemented VTT DDR controls, because why would you do that on your $200 B550 motherboard, right? Like, this $50 Gigabyte board, it has both of those things, but $200 Asus motherboard, nah. You don't need those kinds of features on your $200 Asus motherboard. Maximus Apex for dual DIM OCs. Actually, now that you mention it, the Maximus 12 Apex is probably the closest a motherboard has gotten to being my favorite motherboard ever. Because I really like the VRM on that is beast. It's got all of the buttons. Yeah, it's got basically all of the buttons. It's got a postcode. It doesn't have, like, it actually supports dual rank DIMMs properly this time around. Yeah, I'd say Maximus 12 Apex is probably favorite motherboard, now that I think about it. Like, there's still a bit of testing I need to do with it, but I can't think of anything where it's, like, disappointed me so far. Other than being an Asus motherboard, which just has its own, like, Asus behavior, but that's every motherboard. It's like you have a Gigabyte motherboard, the BIOS, like, either you have awful dual BIOS, or the BIOS likes to corrupt it, or the BIOS likes to corrupt itself, or, you know, it, like, there's weird Gigabyte motherboard things, and then there's weird Asus motherboard things, and then there's MSI motherboard things that other motherboards don't do. It's kind of like that. I got a Maximus 10 Apex running 2x32 at 4,000 on a 9900. Why are the newer boards so extreme prices? Because the new boards are like way, way better than the old boards. Like the Maximus 10 Apex is like basically half a Maximus 12 Apex. In a lot of ways, yeah, it's basically half a Maximus 12 Apex. Anyway, so yeah, I'm done here because, I mean, we're not going anywhere. At this point, it's just devolved into a just chatting stream, so. Which is, I think, what happens with basically every AHOC stream. Like, sooner or later, it just turns into a Q&A. So, yeah, I guess thanks for watching. Like, share, subscribe. All right, we're on YouTube. So, like, share, subscribe. Leave any comments. Actually, I'm not going to make this public, so. But hey, I guess if you have the unlisted link for this somehow, then leave any comments, questions, suggestions down in the comment section below. If you'd like to support what I do here with the channel, I have a Patreon. There's a link to that down in the description below. There's also the HOC Teespring store where you can pick up shirts, stickers, posters, you know, the usual YouTuber merch. There's a link to that down in the description below as well. And yeah, that's it for this live stream, which was honestly quite disappointing, but very unsurprising to me. As disappointing as that is to say, I can't pretend to be surprised. Yeah, so that's it. Thanks for watching, and goodbye.